Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Yaah magazine, issue number 15. This is a magazine published by Mark Walker, who runs both Flying Pig Games and Tiny Battle Publishing. So you'll see a lot of support for Flying Pig and Tiny Battle games inside the magazine, along with a bunch of reviews and information from other games as well. The magazine does come with a game, Caucusus Burning, the Nagorno-Karabakh War of 2020, and that deck of cards to the side is part of the components, which we'll take a look at now as we go through what comes with Yaah magazine, issue number 15. Well, we start off with the magazine itself, and inside we get a couple of counter sheets with these big 1-inch counters, deck of cards, and our map. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game, and then we'll take a look at the magazine. And here's a look at the map that comes with the game. The first thing you'll notice when you get it out of the magazine is this is really thick cardstock. You can hear it there. Beautifully done map. Really love the graphics, and the quality of the paper just makes it that much better, especially for a magazine game. Generally, you just get paper maps, not the thick cardstock. But really love the color palette. Love the look of the map. It really is going to pop on the table. Azerbaijan at the top right. Bottom left, you have Armenia. Down here, we've got Iran, and in the middle is the area that you're going to be fighting over. That's Artsakh. That was the disputed region that the two are fighting over. Then you have your politics track over here on the left-hand side. Pretty simple map, pretty easy to maneuver around and get the fighting. Remember, these are going to be 1-inch counters, which is why you've got these giant hexes. And speaking of those counters, let's take a look at the two counter sheets that come with Yaah magazine, issue number 15. On the first sheet, we have the Armenian and the Azerbaijani forces, and you can see these are nice, big, thick 1-inch counters. Easy to read, easy to see on the table, especially for us older guys with the older eyes. We definitely appreciate that, but fantastic quality, pre-rounded counters, outstanding to see in a magazine game. On the second sheet, we have the remainder of the Armenian and Azerbaijani forces, as well as Russians and Syrian mercenaries and administrative counters. You'll notice here, these are for Platoon Commander Deluxe. This is going to be for an additional expansion that comes in the magazine, which we'll take a look at, which centers around Aracourt. And we'll take a look at a few examples of the cards that come with the game. We've got a couple different types of cards here. We've got reactions and actions. We've got cards with 2 actions. Then we have the Dan cards, which are going to give you the reshuffle. Then we also have cards that are just going to be for either player. Pretty self-explanatory. For example, you have Road Out, Interdiction Mission, place Road Out counter on a road hex, road movement not possible there until the end of the next turn. Advance, move 1 hex of units. You may enter an enemy-occupied hex, but at -1 to your firepower total. Then the faction-specific cards here, we've got the Azerbaijani and the Armenian cards. They've got an action and a reaction. The reaction's in green, and that will only be played as you would expect when you are the non-phasing player, because it is a reaction card. Next, we'll take a look at the rules that come with the game. This is a 15-page rulebook, and the game is designed by Greg Porter. Start off with the introduction, then we get into the map. Remember, we talked about the map when we looked at it. The Artsakh region is the center of the map, and that is the region being fought over. Then we have our terrain, scale. This is battalion scale. We have the politics, which we saw the politics track on the map. The objective, the counters, all explained to you here how to read your counters. We get into the other game terms, and then we get to the game setup on page 77. So I think about 8-9 pages of actual game rules. The rest is supporting text. Then we have the sequence of play, day turn sequence. Then we have the night turn sequence, check for end game condition, and playing actions. Logistics, movement, stacking limits. The stacking limit in this game is 3 units. Then we have combat, assault combat, as explained to you. Counterfire, withdraw, resolution, artillery barrage, airstrike, cities as targets, entrenched, reaction cards, political points, game strategy, tactics, and postscript. Then we have the order of battle for Armenia, Artsakh, and Azerbaijan, as well as the table of contents at the end of the rules. And finally, we'll take a look at the magazine itself. This is an 88-page full-color magazine. Start off with an ad for the Long Road on the inside of the front cover, and then the Izak Editor's Zone of Control, Kesha and the War in Nagorno Karabakh. So I don't know how Mark's doing it, but somehow he's tying in Kesha with that war. So that should be interesting to read. Then we have the table of contents. Talks about games we love. CSS to Fold the Gap, an article written by Norm Lund. The Great War in the East, written by John Burt. Invaders Upgrade, from Clay Meyer. High Frontier for All, by Roger LaRue. Great War Commander, British Expeditionary Force, by Nicholas O'Neill. By Stealth and Sea, also by Nicholas O'Neill. NATO Designer Signature Edition by Arrigo Valliconia. The Dogs of War, also by Arrigo Valliconia. And Tokyo Express by Eddie Carlson. Then we have these scenarios that are included in the magazine. We have Platoon Commander Deluxe Solitaire, 65 squad battles, Scream Aim Fire, and a couple for OST Volume 2, as well as the Platoon Commander Deluxe Aracourt 44 expansion, which we saw those counters when we looked at the counter sheet. And it talks about the game in this issue, Caucusus Burning. We start off with CSS to Fold the Gap by Norm Lund. He's going to talk about his opinion on the Fold the Gap game from Compass Games. And right there he says, I find that it captures the flavor of the period well, and as a model it produces plausible results. Then we have The Great War in the East, Hollandspiels at All Costs, and Tiny Battle Steamroller 1914. This is game reviews by John Burt, going to be talking about both of those games. So if you're into World War I, you're looking for a couple new games, this will be of interest to you. Getting an opinion on how these two World War I games shape up. Then we have the Invaders Upgrade, the making of print and play Invaders from Dimension X by Clay Meyer. And this looks pretty friggin' awesome. I love how he turned the game into like a book. And you get that old 50s sci-fi looking book. Really dig the way it came out. And he's going to explain to you how he did the whole print and play. Pretty cool. High Frontier for All, To Boldly Go, written by Roger LaRue. He's going to talk about High Frontier for All, the latest edition of the game that has been around for quite a while and is pretty complex and involved space simulator. If you are into space, it's one you're going to want to check out. Then we have The Great War Commander, British Expeditionary Force. This is written by Nicholas O'Neill. He says here, this is not a narrow expansion of a single army, but rather a collection of armies that are all allowed a chance to show what they're made of in the game scenarios. So pretty cool if you're into, again, World War I, and you're looking for a tactical level game. One to check out and get an opinion on here. And we have By Stealth and Sea, also by Nicholas O'Neill. And he starts off saying, overall, By Stealth and Sea is a genuinely intriguing and fascinating design, and not just for its subject matter. And By Stealth and Sea is a really interesting game. It's frustrating because you're dealing with the frustrations the Italians dealt with, but it is definitely an intriguing game and one that you'll be interested in checking out if you're into World War II, and if you're into submarines, especially if you're into the Italian naval forces. Then we get to NATO Designer Signature Edition. Old wine in new bottles, or new wine in new bottles. This is by Arrigo Valliconia, and he says, NATO is not a straight reprint, even the subtitle change, which is true. This is a complete rebuild of the game. It is not just a reprint. It is completely redone. Then we have The Dogs of War. What happens when an irresistible force meets an immovable object, also by Arrigo Valliconia. It says here, The Dogs of War explores the first days of a hypothetical Warsaw Pact attack on the southern sector of North Ag, NATO Northern Army Group. Be interesting to see how he fares with that game and what his opinion is. If you are familiar with the C3 series from Thin Red Line Games, then you'll be interested in reading that, and if you've been curious about it, you'll want to read that as well. Tokyo Express, written by Eddie Carlson. We'll talk about the solitaire game, Tokyo Express. Then we get to the scenario part of the magazine. Assault on Goodnovo, a Platoon Commander Deluxe Solitaire scenario written by Mark Walker. Then we have The Streets of Way, a solitaire scenario for 65. This is designed by Chip Henris. Capture and Hold, a Scream Aim Fire scenario designed by J. Kirkpatrick. Then 88's at Zon, a tense scenario for Old School Tactical Volume 2, designed by Robert Very. Crossing the Goal Line, an airborne scenario for Old School Tactical Volume 2. That's designed by Chad Cotter. Then we get to Platoon Commander Deluxe Aracourt 44. Remember when we looked at the counter sheets before, those US counters? That's what this is for here. Going to have some extra rules. Then we have some scenarios. Scenario 1, Lunaville the approach. Then Scenario 2, Lunaville. Scenario 3, Our Court. And Scenario 4, Juvelize. Then we get to the rules for Caucusus burning, which we've already looked at, so we'll just flip past that. We have the last article is Serious Wargaming via Military Operations Research Society, written by Peter Perley. He's going to be talking about Moors if you're interested in more information about professional wargaming. A Most Fearful Sacrifice, the 3 Days of Gettysburg, a nice ad there at the back, and then the player aid sheet for Caucusus Burning, the game that comes in this issue. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Yaah Magazine, issue number 15. This is a magazine published by Mark Walker in support of both Flying Pig Games and Tiny Battle Publishing. Inside we get the game Caucusus Burning, the Nagorno-Karabakh War 2020. This is a war a lot of people don't know much about. I know very little about it, so in this respect it's going to be interesting to play through the game and gain a better perspective of it, and then do some research of it to learn more about it. That's the beauty of war games. We get to explore history, and then it spurs us to learn more about it, which is fantastic. A lot of great articles inside the magazine, a lot of great reviews, good information, as there always is. On top of that, you get a bunch of scenarios, you get the game, and if you have Platoon Commander Deluxe, you get another, like a mini expansion. You get 4 scenarios, you get more counters. Pretty fantastic value, I think, right there. You get the game and an expansion for Platoon Commander Deluxe. So you can't go wrong picking up issue number 15 of Yaah Magazine. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.